Mic check one, two.
Yo, get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
What's up, Balls Deep fam? To another episode of Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan, where we dive balls deep in the hottest stories in sports. If you're new to the program, I'm your host, Devin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jovan. But before we get started, I just want to let you know to pay attention to our Instagram, our social medias, just because we have something in the works and it requires your participation, and you're definitely not going to want to miss out on this opportunity. But with that being said, make sure to go like, follow, and subscribe. And if you're tuning in via, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, make sure to leave us some reviews. And if you're tuning in via, YouTube, make sure to comment. And but this episode is, combat sports. We're talking about some combat sports. We're going to touch on a little bit of boxing to start the episode. And then to follow, we'll have a special guest on to, talk about some UFC. So to open the episode, we're going to talk about some boxing. In particular, we're going to be talking about, this is division with a stacked division. Teofimo Lopez went out in an interview and basically said that these guys at the top of the division are scared of him in particular. He basically said that he ranked Ryan Garcia as number 10 in the division. He said, Tank isn't willing to take risks because he's under the control of Floyd Mayweather, being that he is Floyd's fighter. And he went out and called Devin Haney the email champion. So my question to you, Jovan, and to the fans, so make sure to comment your opinion on this, but how do you rank these four fighters? Like 1 through 4 or 4 through to 1, how do you rank these fighters?
So if I had to rank these fighters, I'll probably give the slight edge for number 1 to Teofimo, simply because I feel like he has the most impressive win out of all of them. Obviously, he fought for a championship belt and won against Vasyl Lomachenko, a guy that nobody expected, even me. Nobody expected him to even have a chance against, really. It was basically everybody calling that fight before it even happened, and he came out and, looked like a really good boxer, which he is. So just for the simple fact that I think he has the best fight on his resume, the best win on his resume, I'll give him 1. I think from there, I'll have to probably go with Tank Davis. I feel like he's just a bit more proven than a guy like even Garcia, simply because I don't think that we've seen like a guy like Garcia really face top cream of the crop competition. Obviously, we saw him fight his last fight, and he got knocked down, and he did come back and really changed the entire fight and finish the guy, which is huge. That's something you want to see from a boxer, is how he responds kind of to really his first time getting hurt at all, which he responded well. So it gives me a little bit more confidence in him, but I'm gonna have to go Tank Davis just because I do think he is the most proven aside from Teofimo. But with that being said, there's prospects that those two could fight, and that could really change the outcome of that fight. Could really change the whole landscape of it. So I'm gonna have to go Tank Davis 2. I'm gonna go Ryan Garcia 3 just because I don't know too much about Devin Haney. Like I said, Garcia is fast, and he does pack a little bit of power for a guy who does really look like he is on the smaller side. I would like to see him, like I said, fight against more proven fighters, bigger names, guys who kind of are the full package like Tank Davis, and see kind of how well he bodes against guys like that, top guys in the division, before I could really, give him, one over any of those guys. So if if I had to rank, that's my top four for those four specifically is Teofimo, Tank Davis, Garcia, and
Well,
Haney.
to mention bigger names, he not only is Tank a possible fight for Garcia, but he's also mentioned possibly fighting Pacquiao. So that's interesting. That'll be definitely a test.
He's got a ways to go for
But
that.
they're talking about even him fighting Pacquiao before Tank. So
Oh,
that's a big name to go after right there. But and that's a test. But I'm gonna have to rank
yeah.
Garcia number four as out of these four fighters. I'm probably the biggest fan of his out of anybody's. Um, but Garcia and Tank both are probably the bigger names out of the four, and a lot of people probably would rank them one and two. But I'm going to put him forward just because he's shown vulnerability in his last fight when he did get knocked down. Although he did get up and he proved that he still can, overcome adversity. I would put him at four, just because I haven't seen those flaws with any of the other fighters. Devin Haney, I put three, just for the simple fact that out of all of them, he's the one that I least know about. And I understand he's a stud. All these guys are undefeated. So I'd put him at three just from the simple fact that I know little to nothing about him in comparison to the other guys. Two, I'd put Tank just because his knockout power is ridiculous. We've seen it in his last fight. He put that man to sleep, and he's more than capable of doing it to anybody. And two, female, I'm in agreement with you. I'm going to echo what you said. He has the most impressive win out of everybody, and that's exactly why I'll give him the notch as number one. Just because no one out of the four has faced someone as proven as you know the champ. So, well, he's not the champ no more, but you get the gist of it. So,
Yeah.
but that's my ranking is one Tiafimo, two Tank, three Haney, four Garcia. But we have a little twist here, and we have you can call him our boxing expert over here at Balls Deep. So we're going to send it over to Danny, and he's gonna give you his in-depth breakdown of this division.
Thank you, Devin and Jovan. Today we'll be looking at the lightweight division, specifically the top four fighters. I'll be ranking them, and I'll give you my reasons why. First, we got Devin Haney. I think his reach is better than the other guys. He's fast, light on his feet, and good power. Two, Teofimo Lopez. I think he can go in the pocket and fight when he has to. Just we've seen it with that Lomachenko fight. Good speed and really good power. Number three, Gervonta Tank Davis. I think his power does carry him a lot, but he can't box. That's why I put him number three. Number four, Ryan Garcia. We've seen him get dropped, but we've seen him get back up and win that fight. That sets apart great fighters. Fastest guy on the list. I think these guys can beat each other. But that's my list. Let me know what you guys think. Back to you.
And we're back with more Balls Deep. Thank you, Danny, for your breakdown of boxing as well as that division. And just to jump right into it, we're going to be talking about some upcoming UFC with a special and familiar face, Nico. You guys all know him. He was on our. He was actually our first guest on last season's first. He was our first guest of last season. He's our first guest of this season. So we're bringing in the new season and the new year of Balls Deep, right? With one of our best guests, Nico, to talk about some UFC. How you doing, Nico?
Pretty good, man. Yeah, I guess it has to be a tradition now. So, yeah, pretty good, man. Just happy to be here again.
Happy to have you. Happy
Just,
to have you.
just happy to have you. But just to jump right into it, obviously there was a huge card last Saturday. During the day, it was Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, a really good fight. The commentary were saying that as early as it is in the year that this could possibly hold up for even fight of the year later on in the year. So it was a really good fight. Obviously, Max Holloway ended up taking it by unanimous decision. But Nico, just tell us some of your thoughts on what you saw from the fight, and maybe how things go for this division down the line. Maybe what's next for Max Holloway.
Yeah, I think we saw, like the difference in levels. I mean, Kattar I thought was, ready to fight like the elite level fighters, but Holloway showed us that he's not there yet. It was, I mean, yes, it could be a fight of the, definitely a fight of the year contender, but to be honest, at the same time, it's like, I mean, it was a good fight, but it was mostly just Holloway dominating Kattar, and Kattar, he did what he could, but it was just wasn't enough. His boxing just wasn't good enough, and he showed you why you always have to mix it up in MMA more than ever. He didn't have an answer for Holloway's boxing, and not just boxing, but in general. I mean, you could tell Holloway obviously wanted to stay striking, and he mixed it up really well. He was even beating Kattar in boxing, so he just showed us the different levels sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It definitely was a bloodbath. I mean, it was a one-sided bloodbath. Holloway was over here having Kattar's blood all over him, but my favorite part was just the fact that he was hitting him with these no-look dodges, and it wasn't the fact that he was hitting him with these no-look punches. Like, he would throw these no-look punches while he was, yelling at the commentary, but Kattar would, he'd come back with a combo of his own, and Holloway's dodging both of them. It looks like he's in the Matrix. So that was pretty dope. I haven't seen that in a while or at all ever. So
Yeah, really.
but Holloway looks super impressive. He definitely had a chip on his shoulder, being that he's coming off of his second loss to Volkanovski, and he should have won the last fight, and he had something to prove, and he went out there and proved it. I mean, the only fight for him next is a championship fight, and hopefully it's against Volkanovski so that he can get his revenge. But if it's not, then we're gonna see him against Brian Ortega, which is gonna be a nice fight, and hopefully Volkanovski down the road. But Holloway just looked super impressive. He did, break records. He broke his own record in terms of hitting the most significant strikes in a round, with 141 in round 4 in this fight against Kattar, which was surprising because Kattar, I didn't expect him to go the distance the way he was looking. Holloway was just tagging him up.
Yeah.
And then he also broke a UFC record with 445 significant strikes in the entire fight, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Kattar looked a little bit out of his element. I think Holloway kind of had him shook a little bit, even with the no looks and stuff like that. Kattar almost looked like he didn't know what to do with it, and which was surprising because Kattar is a really good fighter, and Max Holloway made him look like he didn't belong in the UFC, let alone the octagon with him. So it was a pretty bad fight for Kattar. But Max Holloway looked really, really good. Probably better than I've ever personally think I've seen him. And it's very reminiscent of a fighter you just mentioned, Devin, and Brian Ortega, where Max Holloway kind of we saw Ortega, up and coming. He was a really good fighter, and not that he's still not, but Max Holloway really just blessed him. He tagged him up, beat him really badly, and then Ortega came back and a whole new fighter looking better than he's ever looked in his entire fighting career, let alone the UFC. So, and I feel like we've seen really the same thing with Max Holloway here. He lost his belt. He lost to Volkanovski twice now. One of which maybe he felt like he should have won. And he came back a complete different fighter, better than I've ever seen him. And looks like he's just now getting starting to reach his prime, which is pretty crazy because we've seen a really good Max Holloway thus far. So, it's exciting to see that a fighter that is already so good can get so much better. But with that being said, we do know that Dana White basically did already confirm that Volkanovski's next. With how good Max Holloway looked, he thinks that there's really no other fight for him to make. But that does leave open, a future fight for, possibly Volkanovski and Ortega, or, Holloway and Ortega, which will also be great fights either which way it goes. But it was a fun card to watch, and that was a really great fight.
I think for us, I mean, I think it was kind of lucky for the fans the way it kind of played out with Holloway losing, because now we got to see Holloway Kattar, and now we're gonna see Volkanovski Ortega, and then we're gonna see for sure now Holloway fighting the winner of that fight. So I think it kind of worked out for us really well. I mean, maybe not for them, but hey, doesn't matter, you know. Like we're gonna get great fights, and I mean props to Kattar for I mean lasting 5 rounds, you know, because exactly the way he made him look, he just didn't have anything for him, and but he still hang there, and he lasted the 5 rounds, and yeah, like you said, I think it's scary to think, like Holloway's still only 29, so he's only gonna get better,
Yeah.
really. I mean, he's still super young. There's fighters that reach the UFC at 29 and have good careers.
I
You're
mean,
talking about, it's insane.
100%. I mean, if you're thinking about it, really big picture, one of the best fighters in the UFC who kind of just reached stardom is Israel Sonia, who is already older
Yeah.
than Max, who's already older than Max Holloway.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
DC went as far as to say that he's the greatest in that division ever. Uh,
Yeah,
and he
totally.
even went as far as, comparing him to uh, Muhammad Ali, the way he was moving in the octagon with these weaves and no looks, which I can agree, but just because that's what Muhammad Ali was known for in a sense. But I wouldn't go out and say that he's as great as Muhammad Ali. So,
Well, he'll probably destroy Muhammad Ali in a fight.
oh, man, don't say that. But
I mean,
maybe Muhammad Ali now.
Muhammad Ali's
Probably
dead. He's not even alive. But
That's the
But-
point.
Dana White went as far as saying as well that a number 8 fighter is typically more dangerous than the number 3 fighter when you're in the number 1 contender, and we've seen that as a prime example with Ferguson and Gaethje. He had nothing to lose, or he had everything to lose in Ferguson, and Gaethje had nothing to lose in stepping in for that fight, and he took that number 1 contender away from him. But Holloway made Kattar look like the number 6 fighter, if not worse, when they matched up in this octagon. So that's just a prime example of how great Holloway looked in this fight.
yeah, for sure.
Definitely. But to move on from there, we have a fight card coming up on January 23rd, with McGregor and Poirier headlining, and Hooker and Chandler as a co-main. Obviously, a great card. Any card with McGregor on it is huge. We all know that. But great fights all around in general. But just to start, McGregor Poirier, what are you guys hoping to see? What are you expecting? Who do you got winning the fight? Devin, if you want to start.
I just love McGregor, man. He's definitely a character. He definitely knows how to sell a fight. He can definitely sell a used car to anybody. That man's a car salesman at heart. Uh, just because he's able to sell pretty much anything. And I was watching clips and posts of this guy, like when he became double champ, and he was like, I just want to apologize to absolutely nobody. so I'm definitely looking forward to that, but I can't pick against McGregor. He's just that outstanding. I don't want to get carried away like everyone else with his victory over Cowboy Cerrone, just because it was so short. And yes, he looked super. He had a burst to him, but the fight was too short to tell if he's back to his old self. But everyone's saying that this is the best he's ever felt, the best he's ever looked. He definitely looks like his old self, which I'm not going to dispute it, and I'm just looking forward to that. But I'm expecting a good fight. I mean, these guys matched up in the past, in earlier on in their career, and they definitely both got better since that fight. So I'm expecting it to go the distance, but I think Poirier, if he wants a chance, he needs to mix it up. He can't try to outstrike a striker, because he's not going to beat McGregor in the striking battle, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fight that I can't wait to watch. Just too many things, Like I want to see McGregor again. I want to see how Poirier does against him now. That he's gained so much experience, because you're talking about a Poirier that is not the same Poirier at all. You're talking about a Poirier that has fought 4 world champions, fought for a UFC championship against Khabib. He's not the same, at all. And obviously McGregor isn't either. But we already know how good McGregor is. We already know how everybody knows how good McGregor is, what he can do. But now, I think people don't know what Poirier can do. Compared to because like I said, everybody knows, oh, McGregor's gonna destroy him, But Poirier is not easy. It's not an easy task, and some people see it that way, which I don't understand. I understand because it's McGregor, but Poirier, man, he has a good chance this time, a really good chance, and I do agree. I think he needs to mix it up, for him to maybe be, and not just to be. I'm not just because I think that's the only way he could beat McGregor, because I think his stand-up actually might be good enough as McGregor's, but I mean McGregor has, he is the striker, and McGregor doesn't want to go down. McGregor's gonna want to stay up, and Porter does have that wrestling that it could help him with the striking a lot. If he tries to mix, if he throws a takedown once in a while, tries to go for a takedown once in a while, that'll keep McGregor, guessing a little more, and that'll open up his striking a little more. Because I think he has really good striking too, but Poirier. But yeah, I mean, but with all that said, I still think McGregor's gonna take it. It's just hard for me to predict, how it goes, but. I think at the end of the day, McGregor would probably take it. He's looked good, his last fight, and everybody says he looks good. And like I said, we already know how good he is. So, just because of that, I will have to go with McGregor.
Yeah, for me, I think regardless of who wins this fight, I don't think this fight goes the distance, honestly. I think whoever wins this fight is going to finish it.
By knockout or submission?
But with that being said, not completely certain. I'm leaning more towards knockout, from being honest with you. But with that being said, and I mean, not saying knockout, it could be TKO as well. But with that being said, I completely agree with the both of you. I mean, it is hard to pick against McGregor. And for that reason, that is my pick. But Dustin Poirier is, a really great fighter. He's not the same fighter that we used to see before. I mean, the last, 3 or 4 fights, we've seen a complete fighter, a guy who, you can match up with the best of the best. I mean, we saw that against, Justin Gaethje, and I really stopped believing that his hands. I mean, McGregor, don't get me wrong, McGregor's hands are on another level. His striking in general is on another level.
Yeah.
But I stopped believing that Dustin Poirier's hands weren't enough after I saw him fight Justin Gaethje, because. I mean, he just fought such a great fighter that, if I'm being honest, I did not expect him to win at all. I really gave him no chance in that fight against Justin Gaethje, and he kind of came out and proved me wrong. And so that's what I'm saying. I feel like, in the sense, he's fighting with a chip on his shoulder as well, because really everybody's kind of already calling it for Conor. Yeah. Everybody already wants to give Conor another matchup with Khabib before this fight even ends.
Warrior against the world.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And I mean, it's been that way. And that's really the only reason I kind of had, not that I thought he would win, but that's the only reason I kind of would give him a shot when I saw that Khabib fight, was because Justin Gaethje kind of had that chip on his shoulder. But so with that being said, I think it'll be a great fight. I think it'll be a close fight. I think Conor wins it.
I hope.
I think it'll end regardless of who wins it by knockout. But I'm expecting if I'm being honest, a fight of the year candidate between two guys who are warriors and just love going in the octagon and fighting. So I think regardless of the outcome, I think this would be a great fight. And to speak a little bit on Conor being a car salesman, I really don't want to see him fight Khabib again, because I feel like it'll be the same outcome. Yeah. But he's really selling me on wanting to see a second fight.
I mean, I could understand maybe if he could look. I'm not opposed to another Khabib fight. The problem is that he really needs to prove. I don't care who you are. You need to prove us that you're different. It's not gonna be the same. You need to not just win this fight comfortably. You need to fight one more time at least against a top guy and beat him, and then maybe I'll be like, okay, maybe I could, you could fight with Khabib again. But right now, I don't care if he beats Poirier tomorrow. I mean, Khabib destroyed Poirier too, so it's kind of
I mean,
not like,
we definitely have to see what Connor
Yeah.
Yeah,
is before we can
exactly.
even say that, because I've heard nothing but good things. I've heard
Yeah,
from
yeah.
his
That's what
camp
everybody's saying.
and saying that he's never seen a more focused, never seen a better Connor. He said it. Even Dana White said it. But of course, your camp is going to say that, and of
Yeah.
course, Dana White is going to say that wanting to sell a
Yeah.
fight. So I really just have to see for my own eyes
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
what this new Connor looks like, and if I think he's good enough to beat
Yeah.
Khabib. I mean, really, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what we think. It matters what Dana White. If Dana White,
Yeah.
And it also matters what Khabib thinks. Khabib said he's not
Oh,
coming out
yeah,
of retirement unless he's sold this weekend. He's already impressed with Oliveira, and got the McGregor Poirier fight and the Hooker Chandler fight. So maybe the winner out of this fight fights Oliveira, or the winner of the co-main event, after. But McGregor, I think he said that the first fight against Khabib, Khabib fought the worst version of him and he fought the best version of Khabib. So I'm just hoping the loss to Khabib, he learned from it and learned from that experience, and he got better. Not just because his takedown defense is good. It wasn't great enough to go up against Khabib, but his ground game, he needs to get better. And I want to see that in this fight against Poirier, because I think Poirier needs to take him down, to tire him out, slow down the fight, because McGregor is going to come in at 110%, or even faster. So you want to slow him down, tire him out, and to echo what Nico said, he's gonna keep his hands down, because he's gonna want to defend those takedowns, and that's gonna make it easier on Poirier in standing up and striking, because it's gonna leave McGregor open. So I just want to see improve McGregor. The fight against Cerrone wasn't enough to say that he improved. So I would just like to see the old hungry Irishman that he was before, coming
Yeah.
up in the ranks.
definitely.
Yeah, and if we've ever seen McGregor, struggle with something, is with that. Like when you make him grapple, or the fight goes to those those fourth and fifth rounds, like Nate Diaz. That's when you see him, struggle, and his striking is not as effective anymore. So I think if Poirier could accomplish that, he'll have a good chance of beating him.
I mean, because there's not many people that really were able to put him in uncomfortable
Exactly.
situations.
Yeah.
So that's really the best way to beat him, is to put him in
Yeah.
an uncomfortable situation.
Exactly.
But with that being said, that Coleman on the same night, also a really good fight. That may not get as much attention, because obviously Conor McGregor's name isn't attached to it, but it's just as good a fight, if you ask me, as Hooker Chandler. So Nico, what are you expecting from that fight? Who are you hoping to see win, or who you got winning?
Yeah, I'm expecting an entertaining fight. Chandler always goes for it. He's known for that. And Dan Hooker too. He's always having really good fights, always fun fights. So I'm expecting a great fight here. It depends how. It really is gonna depend how the fight plays out here. I think if Chandler is able to use his wrestling effectively against Hooker, I think he'll be able to get the win. Uh, but if he fights a more conservative fight, and just like a stand-up fight, I think Hooker actually has a better chance of beating him. I think Hooker is maybe a better, technical striker than Chandler is. So again, but I mean, obviously Chandler is more of a wrestler than maybe like a Poirier, but still, he likes to strike, and he's good at it. He has that championship experience from Bellator. With all that said, I still can't pick him against the Hangman if he hasn't proved us anything yet. I mean, we've seen Bellator fighters that go to the UFC and they don't perform as well as people expect them to. Sometimes it happens, but sometimes it doesn't. So, like I said, until he can prove us that he's at that level, because he's fighting almost at the elite level right now. Hooker is right there. So until he can't, he needs to prove me that he could beat the top level guys. So I think I'm gonna have to go with Hooker for this one.
For me, I'm gonna have to go with Chandler. So, and the reason why I'm going with Chandler, he's the unknown. No one knows what to expect from this guy. Like you said, um, the success rate of people coming over from Bellator to UFC hasn't been the greatest, but he's at the top of the top. He's fought the cream of the crop over there at Bellator, and he's been successful, and that's why they brought him over. And he was a shoe-in as a fill-in for the Gaethje Khabib fight. They wouldn't, and that would have been his first fight in the UFC should he have fought. So I don't think they would have put him in that predicament if he wasn't ready. So I think the hype is real, and I don't know what to expect from him. I don't think anyone really does against this type of talent, but I'm invested to see what comes from all this hype. I wanna see if he lives up to the hype, and I think he will. I think this fight ends in submission. I think he's going to use that wrestling background to take him to the ground. Obviously, it's not going to be on the ground the entire fight, but it's going to tire him out to the point where now he's later on, probably the third, fourth round, he's going to be able to get those in those holds to get to the submission that he wants, and he's going to get in this in a particular spot which he's looking for. And if anything, it might end in knockout, but I'm leaning more towards submission just because of his wrestling background and just the results of his fights over at Bellator. But he comes out strong. He comes out with energy just from the highlights that I've seen. So Hooker's gonna have to be on his toes at all times. He can't stay flat-footed.
Definitely. I'm gonna have to echo a little bit of what Nico said. In the sense that, I mean, that's a big part of the reason that I'm going Hooker in this fight is the unknowns of Chandler against the top talent of the UFC. With that being said, I completely agree in the sense that the fact that he has the championship experience and has fought championship kind of gives him that edge in the sense that he's fighting the cream of the crop over in Bellator, whereas Hooker is just about to transcend himself into that level. So I feel like this is pretty much the perfect test in terms of Chandler's transition over to the UFC. Not that I don't believe in his talents, I do. I've seen some of his highlights from his fights in Bellator because I don't watch much Bellator. But I've seen some of his fights from Bellator. And he's a really good fighter, but it's just the sense of like I've yet to see him against the talent of the UFC, and until I could really get a taste of where exactly the talent, the differences in talent is between him and the top guys in the UFC, it's really hard for me to pick against a guy like Dan Hooker, who is so good. So just for that reason alone, I think that I have to go Hooker in this one.
And to be honest with what both of you guys have said, I'm kind of shifting my mentality now because one thing that is true is the UFC thought he was good enough to be a replacement for was it a Khabib Gaethje fight? I think so, right? Okay, it was a Khabib Gaethje. So yeah, that's the biggest fight you could be a replacement on. That's literally no bigger fight that you could be a replacement on. And then after that, like Fibo said, now I'm thinking about it a little bit. You're right. Dan Hooker doesn't have a lot of fights against the top level UFC fighters, like the top level UFC fighters. Like you're talking, he has a fight against Poirier, but besides that, he's had a fight against like top 10 guys, but like Felder and stuff. But I mean, you're right. Like Chandler has been fighting the best of the best for Bellator for a while now. So. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I still want to go with Hooker because I don't want to just not go with Hooker after I picked him. But I think yes, I think there's a really really good chance that Chandler is. I think there's a good chance actually Chandler destroys Hooker too.
Oh,
we never know. I mean, he has that top level experience, so we'll see what happens. I mean,
you got to think about it too. They could have literally picked anyone to be a shoe-in for that fight, and they picked him. So the belief in his talent to either possibly go up against Gaethje or even Khabib, should Gaethje not have been able to fight, that's kind of ridiculous as your first fight transition over. So just on that alone, and the fact that it's the unknown, because these fighters in the UFC, they can go based off of the fights in Bellator, but not really. So like you can only scout him to a certain extent, like in terms of tendencies and things like that. So the unknown, I think, is gonna eat Hooker alive, and that's why I picked Chandler. But
Yeah.
to move forward and shift over, we're gonna take a small break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about the UFC 249 title fights.
The boy patience is getting thinner than big razors. Since 9-6, been accustomed to hooligan behavior. Can call your Lord and Savior, he ain't even trying to save ya. And call his phone in some years, asking for big favors. The reason why a lot of niggas die, whether it be hunger or you trying to test me in the guise. Never been a fan of school, you can miss me with the problems, but I still graduated, so I obviously solve them. 2-piece and a biscuit, I risk it if I got her. Principles what life's about, I knock you out about $1. Might as well refer to me as MVP of all the rhymers. Talking body after body, John Gracie, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm a fucking amazing, a monster to say the least, too profitable. So I feel responsible to achieve everything that I once believed times 3, cause I overdo it. My music is more than music, it's how I'm surviving through it, nigga. Dime. Never been a fool, bitch, lately been on my time. Miss me with the bullshit, it's a cold world. Be careful who you cool with, claiming them your slimes till they slime you, typical shit.
What's up, guys? Thank you for following us this far. We're back from our quick break with more UFC to talk about, more specifically, UFC 249. Main card, we have 3 championship fights in one night, which is Jan Blankovich and Israel Sonia, Amanda Nunez and Megan Anderson, and Peter Yan against Aljamain Sterling. For the light heavyweights, women's featherweight and bantamweight title, respectively, for all 3 of those fights. To start, we're going to talk about Jan Sterling, which is for the bantamweight title fight. Peter Yan, obviously the champion, against Aljamain Sterling, a guy who's been waiting a little bit for this shot. Devin, you want to give us your take first on, who you got winning this fight, what you're hoping to see?
Well, to correct myself, I think I said UFC 249 before the break, but it's UFC 259. So I apologize for that. But to jump right in, I'm gonna lean towards Sterling. Peter Yan looks super impressive against Aldo. Aldo is a legend in itself, but I do not think he deserved to be there. In terms of this title fight, with him switching weight classes and losing his only fight prior to the Yan fight in that weight class. So, Sterling looked super impressive in his last fight, ending the fight early in submission and things like that. He's also got a chip on his shoulder. He's going to come out with a vengeance, just because he feels disrespected on Dana White, just because Dana White hasn't really gave him this shot. And he's definitely deserved it for some time now. So he's finally getting that opportunity. So I think he's going to come out with something to prove. And Yan, I don't think he's fought someone as hungry or impressive as Sterling has looked as of late. So I'm going Sterling. I think it'll go the distance. I don't think anyone's going to get finished, but I'm going to go Sterling in this one. Yes, he's lost to, I think, Morales in the past, but that was years ago. I think he's learned from that, and I think he's got a championship mentality going into this one.
I think Aldo was the only candidate now for that title shot. It was pretty obvious. It's been obvious for a while now, and that division.
Yeah,
What?
that division is stacked, so
It is.
It wasn't an easy job for Dana White to make the fights, but one could argue that Sterling was definitely in line.
Exactly, and he, he's been advocating for himself for a while now why he should be the next, and he finally got it, So let's see what he can do. I mean, It's a hard fight for me to pick too. I mean, like I said, the level of fighters now it's so high that it's hard to pick. But um, it's just I don't see John losing against Aldo just because we haven't seen John struggle really until like at all really in the UFC. I mean, he's won all his fights, unanimous decision finishes. We haven't really seen him struggle too much, So I mean, as much as I like Aldo and I know how good Aldo is, he has really tricky striking. He has one of the best grappling in that division for sure. I just don't see him winning that fight against John. John hasn't really had much trouble, and um, Aldo. I mean, he's definitely improved since the losses he's had, but I just don't see him winning this fight at all. I mean, John.
Nico, I'm sorry, just quickly, but you keep saying Aldo. I'm not sure. You mean Sterling?
Yeah, I
Oh.
mean Aljamain is Sterling. Yeah,
My bad. I just wanted.
I'm sorry. I mean it's Sterling. It's Sterling. Yeah. So, I mean it's Sterling. Like he hasn't looked that good. Like I mean, sorry, Sterling has looked really good, but he has. I just don't see him beating John. John he's been too good. He's been very dominant. He hasn't really struggled too much. His last fight, he beat Aldo, which deserved it or not, it's a legend, and he beat him pretty good. Especially towards the end. So it's just hard for me. I think Sterling won't take this fight. I think it'll be close. I think he'll make it a close fight because he's that good. Um, but I just don't see John losing. I just don't see John losing.
Um, in my opinion, I completely agree. We haven't seen Jan struggle at all in the UFC. Although my pick for this fight is Sterling. I think this fight will be a little bit different. I think this will be the toughest test that Jan has faced yet. Simply because I do think that the physicality, the quickness, the athletic ability of Aljamain Sterling is is not like anything, or at least as much of anything that Jan has seen up to this point, in my opinion. I think Aljamain is going to rely very heavily on his quickness, and just his physicality to um, get the job done. I mean, we've seen in his last fight, he really looked like a different animal. He ended the fight, really quickly against a really good fighter in Sanhagen, which was a shocker. So that's where I'm leaning is Sterling. Um, I don't think that Jan will struggle. I think it'll be a good fight. I think it'll be a close fight. But I think that Sterling's just going to rely very heavily on his athleticism to kind of, you know, inch this one out late, especially when it comes to the championship rounds and kind of putting it on your opponent towards the end. I think he's going to rely really heavily on that, and I think that's what's going to ultimately win him that championship belt.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, Jan's gonna have to tire him out, and just because he is super athletic and he's gonna be able to run circles around him. Uh, Not saying he's gonna wash him, but I'm just saying in terms of athleticism, he's gonna be able to just run around the octagon as much as possible in terms of endurance. So he's gonna have to close the gap and slow him down, and the only way to do that is to tire him out. So I just feel like Sterling he has something to prove because Dana White went out and pretty much gave the title fight to everyone, and now he wants to give it to Sterling because he's the only one left that deserves a possible title fight, and Sterling deserved this title fight even before you can say Aldo.
I mean, he definitely probably felt so. I completely agree though that there's definitely something added there because I definitely, in my opinion, I do think that he could have been awarded a title fight a lot more, a lot longer ago. But obviously, now that it being his time now, I think he's going to take this. He sees this opportunity, especially
Yeah.
due to the fact that he felt like he was kind of slighted in the sense where it felt like Dana just waited until there wasn't anyone else, and then he was
Yeah,
like,
so
"Okay, here
he's
you
gonna
go."
win.
In a sense, not that that's
So
exactly what
if he
was
wins,
doing.
he's gonna obviously shove it in Dana's face, being that Dana's got to give him the belt. So he's gonna rub in his
Yeah.
face, and I think he's chomping at the bits when it comes to that.
Hey, anybody that wants to bet some money, I'm here. You know. I'm here. I'm telling you, John, all day, bro. He just athleticism alone is not gonna save him, and
Oh
and
no.
and and and, and he's amazing. I love Sterling. I love Sterling. I think he's a great fighter. I don't know why, man. This Russian fighter is like it just nothing faces John. Like he has never been finished. You know, I don't know, man. It's just I think he goes to a decision, to be honest. You know, because I don't see neither guy
I agree.
finishing each other actually. Um, but I mean, I think it's gonna be a great fight. I mean, I love Sterling, so I mean, we'll see what happens. I still, hey, yeah, I'm telling you, I'm here to bet.
Oh,
So
brother.
But to move on to our second title fight of the night, it's going to be Amanda Nunez versus Megan Anderson for the women's featherweight title. Obviously, we all know who Amanda Nunez is and how good Amanda Nunez is, how dominant she is, I should say, or both. It really doesn't matter. Um, and obviously some of our viewers might not be as as aware of who Megan Anderson is. But with that being said, I mean, do you either of you guys see her dethroning Amanda Nunes on at UFC 259?
You can answer.
no, yeah, I just can't. I don't see anybody beating Amanda Nunes really. Like you know, I think at this point it's just like whenever she decides to retire, that then
About
we'll
the
have a
time?
new champ. Yeah, we'll have a new champion when she retires. But until then, I don't think anybody. And it's not, we're not saying. I'm not saying Megan Anderson's not good. Like I think Megan Anderson's a great fighter, but I mean she's just not at that level. You have to fight Amanda Nunes. You have to be at that extra level, and she's not there. So she's fought big names before and lost. She's lost to Holly Holm. She even lost to Spencer before. So like, you see those losses and you're like, well, I know she's won after and looked good, but she's gonna fight Amanda Nunes now. So, I mean, yeah, I just don't see this fight going any other way,
I'm
to
not
be
expecting this
honest.
fight to go the distance. And although Megan Anderson has looked good and she is a good fighter, she's just not good enough. Nunez is on another stratosphere in terms of talent, and I think the only person in the UFC that has a chance of beating her is Valentina. And until that fight happens, I don't expect Nunez to have competition in either divisions that she holds the belt. So it might result to her retiring. Who knows? I mean, I know she's started a family or is planning on starting a family with her wife. So maybe she just looks to that, or I think Jovan mentioned this before. Trade her off to like they did Mighty Mouse, just because they there's no there
Too damn
there
good.
there's really no one to be here in the UFC right now, so you might as well just get as much in return for her.
Yeah. I guess it's just. I mean, where are you gonna send her? I don't think anybody like. She'll beat
Yeah.
everybody wherever she goes. That's the problem. So, at least Mighty Mouse
Let
had
it
that
go.
like. The One FC has like really good fighters in the lower divisions. Like if Amanda Nunes goes anywhere, it's gonna be the same.
Yeah.
Maybe if she starts fighting with guys, maybe she'll have
Yeah,
more of a
she actually might
edge.
beat some of them too. So
She might have to.
Yeah, maybe she'll
But
have to beat up Jay Paul like
fuck
Dana White did, So.
it.
but yeah, I mean, I completely agree with the both of you. After seeing Megan Anderson's last fight, in which she looked really, really
Yeah.
good, I immediately kind of felt bad for her because at thinking of the prospect of, her having to, possibly fight Amanda Nunes now, knowing that, she's such a good fighter. So credit to her, but Amanda Nunes is just on a completely different stratosphere, um, really than anybody. So it's no slight on any fighter when you say Amanda Nunes is gonna go in there and do what Amanda Nunes is gonna do. It's just what she's been proven to do time in and time out, and there's really been no fighter in the UFC as dominant as her, except maybe Khabib in the history of the UFC. Um,
Yeah.
so it's really just hard to pick against her. Obviously, anything can happen at any given point in the UFC, but I just don't expect Megan Anderson to really have and even a slight chance in this fight. And like I said, that's no slight to Megan, but it's just how good Amanda Nunez is, and she proves it every time.
Yeah.
And it's scary. So I definitely got Nunez winning this one. I think it'll be very
Yeah.
quick.
And
Yeah.
with that, we're gonna shift over to the main event of that pay-per-view card, and that's Jan Blankovich versus Israel Adesanya. So Israel Adesanya, moved up to light heavyweight in hopes to, bring John Jones down, back down, just because he seems to be chasing him and calling him out per usual. But many people don't think John's coming back down. He has nothing to prove at this point in that division. So that's why he moved up in the first place. So I think this is going to be a very good fight between Blankovich and Adesanya. Blankovich feels like he's being disrespected with everything like that. So, Nico, what are your thoughts on this
I think.
on this fight?
Yeah, I think it's actually, um, I think it's a good fight for Blachowicz in the sense of like, you were just gonna fight kind of the same guys that were already fought for the championship not that long ago right now. So, and also if you want to make your name bigger, hey, why not fight Adesanya? It's a super fight. You're fighting a superstar. It's coming from a different division. You beat Easy. That's a big deal. So I think it's not a bad fight for Blachowicz. And also, and then Adesanya, exactly. Maybe he was going now. I think Adesanya, as much as he likes to talk, he's also smart in the sense of like he didn't just want to rush in and fight John Jones. Too, I wouldn't do that ever. I would like to, like he said, I would like to, get more experience and then fight because you don't want to fight John Jones and never have fought in light heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a big like you're fighting at it's a big switch from middleweight to light heavyweight. It's 20-pound difference, and those 20 pounds they make a huge difference. So, we're and Adesanya is a light middleweight. He weighs in like lower than the weight limit. So it's like, we're gonna see Easy. I think he's gonna look different too because there's no way that you're gonna be that skinny and fight at 205. So I think this fight, I think it's a very good fight. I think the only way Blachowicz wins is if he can land heavy shots in Israel, and but if you ask me how I think the fight's gonna play out, I think Israel is just gonna be smart enough. He's fought a heavier divisions before in I believe in kickboxing. So I think if he's smart enough and if he uses his striking, just distance, smart, I think he'll take the fight. I think I'm gonna go with Adesanya just because I think he's smart enough. Because we saw him fight against Joe Romero, which had that power, and he didn't take any chances. He fought super smart. Maybe with Gastelum, he was like, oh, I don't think this guy is gonna do much damage, and then he ended up being really good, and maybe he learned his lesson. He's like, okay, I can't, like take that many chances. I have to, fight smart the whole fight, even if it's a boring fight. Like Romero's fight. At the end of the day, you need to win. So I think that's what he's gonna do.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, really mostly on everything you said. I got Adesanya winning this fight, for sure. I kind of learned last fight not to pick against him. Because he's a really good fighter and he's really smart. But with that being said, I don't think it's impossible for Jan to win. I think, like you said, he needs to land some heavy shots and he needs to, basically make Izzy respect him.
Yeah.
And kind of put it on him in the same way that Gastelum did, kind of how you just mentioned it, Nico. Which is exactly what is the best method of beating Izzy. Because I can tell you exactly how this fight is going to go. It's going to be Izzy using his kicks, his legs, his length to, keep John at a distance and just tag him up a little bit, do enough just to get the win. Same way he did Romero, except in the sense that Romero wasn't really trying to advance either. He wasn't trying to bring the fight to Izzy, and I think that's something that Jan can kind of learn from and do exactly what Gastelum did, and that's, get in the pocket and, bring the fight to Izzy. Because that's really the only way you're going to beat him is to get inside his length and start hitting him and landing good power shots. I think what hurts Jan from kind of repeating the same thing that Gastelum was able to do is he doesn't have that same quickness to go with his power that in the way that Gastelum does. So I think I think it then becomes a little bit more difficult for him to beat Izzy than it was for Gastelum. So I do think Izzy wins this fight. I'm hoping for a great fight, and not to say that Jan's not a good enough fighter to make it a good fight. I just think stylistically it's a little tough for him, the way that Izzy fights. So I won't say it's not going to be a close fight, but I do think that Izzy's going to win this and kind of comfortably.
So I hate that I have to echo a lot of what you guys said already, but I'm going to go with Adesanya. And main reason why is just because I think he's a more technical fighter. I think he's more of a well-rounded fighter with his experience outside of the UFC in terms of kickboxing, boxing, and everything like that. And to just mention what Nico said, I think he's going to take a similar approach as he did with the Yoel Romero fight. Just because Jan has so much power, and we realized that in his last fight against Dominic Reyes, when he was leaving those bruises on Reyes' body. So he has that Polish power, not just in his fists, but in his kicks. And I think he's going to have to utilize that against Izzy to have a chance, just because he's going to have to stun him a bit. And he's also going to have to push the pace. He's going to have to not only push the pace, but bring the fight to him, to Izzy. But Izzy, similar to what he did against Romero, it wasn't a flashy fight. And I'm not expecting this to be a flashy fight by all means. I think he's, like Jovan said, he's going to do enough to win by on the cards. He's going to win by decision, in my opinion. But he's going to keep the distance. He's going to tag him and, move on. He's not going to sit in one spot for too long because he's not going to get tagged like he did against Gastelum. And I think he did learn his lesson, and that's what he's going to do. I don't expect, Jan to win other than by knockout. And I think in order for that, he's going to have to tag him in his jaw and test Izzy's jaw, but Izzy might not even allow him to get that close, in my opinion.
I think another key for Jan though is just mixing it up. I feel like a lot of issues that fighters might have, more specifically like when we're talking about Yoel Romero, is fighters going against Izzy and have a one-track mind. Whereas Izzy's coming in there and he's mixing it up. I mean, he's a style bender. It's literally what he does. He uses his entire arsenal. And I think, like you said, I mean, we saw Jan use some of those leg kicks against Dominic Reyes, who obviously isn't Israel Adesanya, but even just throwing the kicks out there and mixing it up, it leaves you open for a lot more opportunities. And I think that's the biggest thing for Jan coming in this, if he wants that chance to land a big shot, is don't focus so much on landing that big shot and don't be so one-track minded. I think he needs to mix it up a lot, especially against a fighter like Izzy, who does exactly the same thing. You got to keep him on his toes just as much as he really is doing to you, and kind of leave something open to hit that shot. Even if you're not landing those body kicks or landing body shots or whatever it is, just leave his mind kind of guessing rather than, oh, I know what he's going to do. He's going to try to land this one shot. Yeah. I know exactly how he's going to try. Like, leave him guessing just as much as really you're going to be guessing against Izzy, because that's all you're kind of doing when you're fighting.
I mean, if sorry, Nico, but if I'm Jan, I'm going in and I'm taking a similar approach as he did against Reyes. Use those leg kicks to his advantage. Attack Izzy's legs, because Izzy's going to try to keep the distance. He's going to try to move around constantly, but you want him to stay stationary so you can have that easier target. And what he did with Reyes, he basically deactivated his mobility because he was targeting those legs, basically chopping down the tree. Once his front leg gets weak or his back leg gets weak, he's gonna have to switch over to the other side. And once you do that, his knees or legs are gonna get weak eventually, or he's just gonna be stationary. So now it's going to be a striking battle, and we already know who has the more power in this instance. So I think he needs to attack the legs and slow him down so that he can hit that big shot. So I think mixing it up, like you said, would be an approach to that extent. But even I don't know his wrestling background, but even just tiring him out, because now he's fighting bigger fighters. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to put your weight on him.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was gonna say, and I mean we know about that Polish power. We're from New Britain, so we know we know like that Polish power is real, bro. I spar a couple of Polish people and they all hit hard. So I believe John when he says that that Polish power is real. But yeah, I think the key I think the key for victory for John is not. I mean, it's gonna be hard for him to land those like leg kicks on Adesanya, but I think if he could put the pressure, if he could actually like make Adesanya back up, and if he could actually engage Adesanya in like clinch, just he doesn't have to take him down even, maybe if he clinches with him in the in the cage, that'll probably tire Adesanya out, and at the same time, it's hard for Blachowicz to like to pressure Adesanya too much because we're not talking about even middleweights or like lightweights. We're talking about light heavyweights now, so it's gonna be hard to put that pressure on. But he's gonna need to do something like that because, I mean, you can stay on the outside and not take too much damage, but if Easy's winning that it's like a strategic technical fighting, you're gonna have to push eventually. So I think that's kind of is gonna be the key for him. Maybe if push when he has to, put him to the cage. I mean, if you could get a takedown in there, that'd be great. If not, it's fine. If you could get those like clinches and we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a good fight. I'm excited for that.
I definitely do think that he has the advantage in clinch situations, especially due to the power. Put some shots on his body. Like Devin said, is really important, especially against a guy like Izzy, or specifically Izzy, because he is so talented and quick. You need to slow him down if you can try to win this fight, and that's crucial for anyone, especially a guy like Jan who isn't coming in there with the most speed.
Yeah, the big weight difference, is definitely. That's what I'm saying. Those clinch exchanges. That's where you're gonna be able to maybe that's where he's gonna be able to take advantage of that extra weight. Because he's definitely gonna be weighting more than him and Nia. So.
But with that being said, all we have for you today. We appreciate you tuning in as always. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe to our YouTube, our Instagram, our Twitter. Leave us some comments. Leave us comments about anything. Literally anything we talk about, anything you want to comment about, or give your opinion on it. Definitely, chime in. And also, be very, pay attention this week to our Instagram page, because we will be, doing something for the fans this week. The people who have, kind of stuck with us from the beginning, or even if you're just now tuning in, we just want to show appreciation to you guys. So tune into, pay attention to our Instagram. We'll be dropping something for you guys sometime this week. I don't know if Devin has anything to add.
I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Nico, for your time. Thank you for joining us, as always. And tell the fans, where can they find you? Where and do you have anything to promote? I know you have some things in the works, in your mixed martial arts career.
Well, yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll be fighting on February 20th. That's where I'm looking to hopefully get my first amateur Muay Thai fight. So hopefully that works out. I'll definitely keep you guys updated about that. Once I have an opponent, that'll be real. So and then just know where to find me. Instagram, Nico Bancalari. I'm sure these guys will put it somewhere. And man, just I'm glad to be here. And whenever there's a UFC event, you know who to call.
Just know you better record it. Jovan said you better record it.
Oh yeah.
So that we can show the Balls Deep fam, what Nico has in store.
But
for sure.
Nico's first fight is his first knockout.
I hope so he can go viral.
Go viral, so, man. Yeah, exactly.
We might have to.
The next easy.
We might have to create some. Might have to create some, gear so we can send them out there with it.
Oh shit, no, for real, man. Hey, you guys will be my first sponsor, I guess. You know,
You'll
just
be
balls deep.
And
Yeah,
then
man.
you're gonna have to tell you that your opponent, you're like, balls deep. You're like, yeah, I'm about to go balls deep in that ass, boy.
I don't know if he's gonna like that, but you know, he might not want to fight after I tell him that. But we'll see.
But that's all we have for you guys today. Until next time, peace.
Hi guys.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.